the shaken man, nation in his eyes, striped with blood and emblazed tattoo, streaking cathedral style. They say, he has no brain, they say.
Hello, folks. Welcome to the Tito and Bill Goodtime Hour podcast.
Hey.
I am Tito, and to my left is
Bill.
Hi, Bill.
You're extreme left, as in cross country left.
Yes.
And this is our first sort of real episode. After the 0 episode, and I think we should thank a lot of the people that gave us great feedback, whether it be Jeff Anderson or Gordy, or thank you so much for
and Dean Maselli, thank you so much for all your messages, and so keep them coming.
Karen Babiak, just a lot of people we have to thank for a lot of love back, so that's really sweet. I think you're with me in hoping that when we did do our first regular series episode that it would be on a much happier note, but something went down 4 days ago that we really have to address, because it's the passing of someone who meant a great deal to us in the cultural sense and some other senses.
Everything.
I know it hit you pretty hard, so So we're going to be memorializing David Bowie on this
Absolutely.
episode. I don't know, man. Where do you want to start?
Well, I mean, first I just want to say, obviously this is very sad. It was very sad for me, and especially a couple months ago when I first heard the song Black Star and saw the video, I was completely knocked out by that. And I was, I am 41. I was born in 1974, so I wasn't there when Ziggy Stardust landed. I was too young for the Thin White Duke, but and of course, I liked a lot of the stuff he's did in the last 20 years. He's put out a lot of interesting stuff, but I thought Black Star was on its way to be something as significant as, Aladdin Sane or Station to Station. Mm-hmm. And I actually thought that, wow, we might get another tour, even though I knew that he had a heart attack a few years ago. We're not really seeing the extent of his health issues until now, but I actually thought that, wow, we might get a tour. So that was one thing that I was really sad about. That's kind of a selfish reason right there. But, I don't want to say I am in mourning, even though I am very sad. But the past few days I've been seeing, it's been, what it turns out for me, it's been a celebration. I've been celebrating his life and his legacy, his output. And I have been, since his birthday, it's just been, any excuse for me to play David Bowie albums, it's always a good thing. So since Friday, it's just been going back through his catalog and experiencing everything all over again, it seems, and reliving those memories and finding things out that I didn't know and looking at things differently ever since then. So, while I am sad, I have been celebrating his life and his legacy these past few days, and of course I am sad, and I did shed a few tears, especially when I was doing the dishes and, Wild as the Wind came on, and the first time he says, "Don't you know your life?" I just dropped the sponge. I just lost it right there. So, but yes, I'm still sorting things out right now. Yeah.
Yeah, I have to say something I told you earlier in the week. For me with Black Star, it's almost too early for me to hit that. Almost like I'm grabbing a diary out of a casket. And,
yes.
And I can't think of another time like that where there was something that was so close in proximity to someone's departure.
Yes.
Double Fantasy maybe approximates that.
Yeah.
But that doesn't seem to have had the depth that this project. I'm basically going on the next day, the album he released before this.
Yes.
In 2013, which is of really high level of quality as well.
Yeah.
And, I'm just not ready to listen to it.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny. I'm staring at it right now, but not yet. I just don't think I could, Like you said, it's like reading his diary, and I'm not ready for that right now.
Yeah. So
Where were you when you found out the news? Like this is John F. Kennedy or something,
Yeah.
but.
For people who don't know, you and myself and 3 other gentlemen were refugees from a particular Facebook group, and that's about as diplomatic as I can put it.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
we started this thread about, at this point, God, it's like a year and a half ago, I think.
Yes.
It's been quite a while, where we just talk music and life and shit with each other on this
Yes.
continual IM that's been going on. And
Yeah.
I went to bed and I was kind of exhausted because I went through the NFC wildcard game.
Yes.
Watching that, and I'm a big Green Bay Packers fan, and it's just a really emotional experience watching that game. And
yeah, I was thinking about you and my best friend who's a Redskins fan, but continue.
Yeah. And I was just exhausted at the end of it, and we were just vegging. My partner and I were just vegging in bed the whole night. I don't even remember what we were watching after the game, but it was, went to sleep. And I found out in the morning, and it was actually pings between you and our friend Edwin De La Cruz. And that's how I found out.
Wow.
That was the first thing I found out in the morning with Edwin's ping that said, it's blowing up all over here, because he was in London early in the week.
He was. I can imagine what it must have been like over there.
And that's where I was. And I assume you were up at the
I
time,
was about to fall asleep because, not that strange because it was his birthday a few days prior. So I've still been in kind of Bowie mode. But, my friend was over, my friend Dave Lopez, was over and, we were about to go to our meeting. It's anonymous, so I can't really talk too much about that, but, I just said, "Oh, what are you doing? What are you watching?" I'm like, "Oh, just I put on the day when his appearance on the Dick Cavett show."
Mm-hmm.
So we were watching that before our meeting, and then after that, when I saw a band play, and then as I was about to fall asleep, my phone just starts buzzing and pinging, and my friend Babaloo sent me the message. I'm like, "Dude, did you hear?" I'm like, "What are you talking about? It's got to be a hoax." Mm-hmm. So of course I go and looking everywhere, and then I see it on TMZ and CNN. I'm like, I didn't know how to react. So I immediately, like I was doing, just started digging out all of my Bowie albums, all my Bowie vinyls, and all my 45s, and the memories just start racing from when he first, when I was first introduced to him to now. And, I didn't get any sleep. I was up until 4 a.m. just playing David Bowie records and looking at the internet and completely numb.
Yeah.
And then as the hours progressed, it just got bigger and bigger. And I started thinking about his, the part that he played in my life, and not only in my life, but all of the bands that I've loved and respected, and his impact in popular culture and music and memory, everything. It just was all on the surface all at the same time, and I just could not sleep at all. Mm-hmm. And then the next day I didn't go to work because I had 2 hours of sleep. I would have been evil. So that was the last.
Yeah, my friend Tom Moynihan was up when the first reports started hitting, and we've had that in the past with the internet, and the time Lou Reed died, that was like the third time he died. There were two substantial internet rumors, so he went to bed thinking this was bullshit.
Yeah.
I believe. And I'm glad I didn't have that. I'm glad I didn't know until the morning. And,
wow.
And it was really touching to see a lot of the tributes. Facebook was just a David Bowie feed. I mean,
oh my gosh,
it was just, even people who weren't familiar with him were asking about him.
Yes.
And it was really something to see that it was, we had something along the same lines about a month ago with Star Wars about how joyous, the premiere was, and everybody throwing memories out. And there was, it was a similar vibe, certainly more somber than something like Star Wars, which was so celebratory. But it was something reading those posts, and something that struck me was people's entry points to Bowie were so different. For some people, it was listening to him on the radio in the 70s. For other people, it was the very early videos on MTV.
Yeah, for me, Let's Dance. That was
for people after who are younger than us, it's Labyrinth. And I've never even seen Labyrinth, the full thing, And there are people that that's their entry point, but a common thread that was there was the investigation continued. They didn't just get exposed to him there and said, "Oh, well, that was cute" or whatever, And whether it was something they connected with or not, they did explore beyond that.
Exactly.
So what was your first exposure to Bowie? Because I racked my brain and I figured out what it was for me.
Yeah.
For me, it was a TV commercial for Diamond Dogs in 19...
Yes.
Oh, I'm so sorry, people. There comes Jersey Dogs.
No, dude, let the Jersey out, dude. I dig it.
I hate it, man. I feel I'm above it, and I can't say that. But it was a
dude for sure. You can say dogs,
chocolate. And it was this commercial for Diamond Dogs that, at least in the New York market, because TV for me in the 70s is imprinted. I mean, I can tell you what was on at 5:30, what was on at 6 o'clock on a given, on days. And this commercial aired a lot in the New York market. And so that would have been the spring of 74. And my parents had 8 tracks of Rise and Fall of Ziggy Stardust and of Pinups. And the cover of Pinups freaked me out. I really got scared by that.
Such a great cover, but I can see how that would have freaked you out.
So it was more exposure to him as an icon than anything musically that I heard. The first song I remember that was saying that was Bowie hearing on the radio had to have been Fame. Because that was his first number one, and growing up in the 70s, it was a song I heard, and
That's such a, I'm sorry for interrupting, but that's such a great commercial for, Diamond Dogs, just the background. Diamond Dogs by Bowie. Oh, just wonderful.
RCA Records worldwide. Yeah. The only thing that beats those are the Casablanca commercials.
Oh,
the Casablanca commercials from the 70s are, every album is an event. Oh my God, Kiss aside, the Parliament Funkadelic commercials, they're amazing. They're amazing, but that's, that again, tangents, we'll get to them. But the first time I listened to Bowie was, there was that period when I'm 11, 12, 13 years old and getting more familiar with music. And my cousin had Hunky Dory. He had a few albums, but Hunky Dory was the first one that I pulled out. And there were songs in there like Changes and Kooks that immediately resonated with me. And then from there, I think, Space Oddity, that was him. Because there were some staples on FM radio. He wasn't as prevalent on the FM radio as acts like the Stones or the Who or Zeppelin. But there was certainly the Chestnuts got played. And that was really my first exposure to him musically was Hunky Dory, I think Ziggy, and this would have been around the time that Scary Monsters came out.
Oh, okay.
And so that's the first exposure to him. I didn't really start listening to him a lot until I would say about 84, because that's when Let's Dance came out and it was a huge hit. And I liked Let's Dance, but not as much as I should have, I felt. And that's when I started going backward and discovering the Berlin Trilogy and things like that. So that's where I am with Bowie. So what was your first exposure?
Mine, with most people my age, around 1983, when did Let's Dance come out? 83, 84, around that time. Yeah. And we liked it. The Gutierrez household loved it. And also at this time, my sister was a huge Duran Duran fan. So, and she was, I owe a lot to my sister and Duran Duran, more than people really know. Duran Duran always, in interviews, whenever they would ask who their influences were, it was always David Bowie, Chic, Roxy Music. So I was very confused. I'm like, how can David Bowie be an influence? He just came out. He's brand new, And, you know, at that point in my life, I'm going to sound like a total snob here because I had a cool dad and a cool mom, and we listened to the Ramones, the first Pretenders record, the first B-52s record, the first Talking Heads record. I think every child should listen to those albums. But for some reason, they never got around to David Bowie with us. So when we were just like, hey, Dad, what's David Bowie? I'm like, dude, he's been around for a long time. And then he played us Changes One Bowie, that compilation. And the three of us, my brother, my sister, and myself, were just completely knocked out by that compilation. It had all the big hits, Space Oddity, Gene Genie, all the hits. And we just dissected everything and kind of went from there as we grew older. And I'll never forget, we were at a Tower Records in Covina, California, and they had the book section, and there was a book called the David Bowie Black Book, and it was just a picture of all the different stages of David Bowie, and we were just knocked out like, David Bowie used to dress up like a girl, you know, just kind of freaked out and interested and in awe at the same time. And the more we listened and examined Bowie's back catalog in his past and all of his different personas, everything that we were listening to at that time, all of the British stuff, all the Depeche Mode, all the Duran Duran, everything started to make more sense. Susie made more sense. The punk rock made more sense. And we could sort of tracing it to David Bowie. And throughout the years, as we got older, we would be into like, maybe like a few years, it was all about the Berlin trilogy, or maybe we were focusing on, you know, the first Darum record and all of that. And, it was just a constant, a velvet gold mine, if you would say, discovering new avenues of David Bowie and things. And it still continues to this day because, you know, there's still a lot of, as big of a David Bowie fan as I am, and you can see on my Facebook page, you know, I have yet to listen to the, Tin Machine record in its entirety. So there's a little avenue right there that I have yet to explore. So that's how, you know, it's a continuing process with David Bowie. And that's what I like about him so much, as a lot of my favorite artists as well.
Yeah. It's interesting you mentioned tying it together. And for me, what tied Bowie together for me with other acts was a book that came out in 1981. I still have it. It's in pieces. I reread it and read it so many times. The writer was Nicholas Schaffner. He wrote a book called The Beatles Forever, and his follow-up book was The British Invasion. And it showcased 7 acts that he thought were the pivotal British acts of the 60s and 70s. The Beatles, the Stones, the Kinks, the Who, Pink Floyd, T-Rex, and David Bowie. And then in the back section, threw everybody else in, you know, Cream up until acts like The Pretenders and The Undertones. And it was reading that book that tied his history together for me, because I didn't understand really the delineation that there were acts that 76, 77 wasn't necessarily dividing line. You know, that there were some acts that could kind of bridge punk with what became before it, with what came before it. And that's the first time I'm thinking about that, because that was the mechanism that I had to learn about Bowie's history, was that book.
Wow.
And it also tied a lot together, because you would see references that, oh, this band covered Bowie here, and I really had a nice overview from that book about where not just Bowie but other acts stood in the history, and how, coming out of that book, realizing that 76, 77 wasn't necessarily year zero. There was a validity to stuff that happened before then. So because
we had to get there somehow.
You'll get that little bit of when you're blessed by Pumpkin Wave, where, you know, you're snotty, you know, you get to that point and you need something to break it down. And when you hear artists, you know, I'm just thinking of other acts, and I'll always link Bowie to the Velvet Underground as well, because of his championing of them. And you know, who knows if
White Light, White Heat.
And seriously, the Velvet Underground might be forgotten if not for Bowie. I honestly believe that. I think
that's a good point. I never thought of it that way,
because, he was the producer on Transformer, and he was constantly championing Iggy Pop and Lou Reed. And, when
he would cover Waiting for the Man and White
right.
Light, White Heat and...
Yeah. And it's also very interesting that with him, if you go to where he was in 67 compared to acts like the Stooges and the Velvet Underground, it's a world away.
Exactly.
So it's interesting that, that he was one thing I always appreciated about him is I think you feel with a lot of artists that they got to a point where they were influenced and they stopped being influenced. You never felt that with Bowie. You always felt that he had his ear to the ground, and not necessarily in a deliberate fashion either. It seemed very organic. He wasn't somebody who was just going to throw in a rap break because that was, it seemed that the stuff that he was listening to, like the incorporation of some industrial elements, when he collaborated with Trent Reznor and stuff, that was genuine. It wasn't to appear young or any nonsense like that.
Yeah, and I think, because when a lot of acts do that, it's very blatant and anybody can see that. Stevie Wonder can see that,
Well, you said see it. We were both lucky enough to see Bowie a couple times live.
Yes.
So do you want to go through our histories? That might be fun.
My history, I've only seen David Bowie twice.
Really?
The very first... Twice, only two times. Yeah, I've only had we almost saw my sister almost saw the Glass Spider tour, but some drama ensued and blah, 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 blah. But, and I wanted to go to that so bad, but, my mother says, no, that's not happening. But the very first time I got to see David Bowie was, in 1995 at the Forum with the, Nine Inch Nails tour, the Outside tour. I was excited to see David Bowie in the flesh for the first time, but, Nine Inch Nails were very, very hot, 94, 95. Unfortunately, after, David Bowie left the stage and Nine Inch Nails took over, about more than half of the audience left. And he played pretty much everything from Outside at the time. I think the only classic songs he did, which were great, he did Man Who Sold the World, I think he did Look Back in Anger, and he closed the show with Under Pressure, which was awesome. He looked great, the band was awesome, but it was kind of disheartening seeing David Bowie in like an empty forum, when I think this place should be packed, and I kind of wish he was playing more stuff that I was more familiar with, but needless to say I had a great time, but and then the second time I got to see him was in 97 for his 50th birthday. I happened to be in New York visiting my father, and I found out that he was playing at the Garden, and it's like it was sold out, and I bought a scalper ticket right in front. I'll never forget, this dude was wearing a Carolina Panthers parka, and sold me a ticket for $70, which was pretty much all the money I had at the time to my name, because I was a certified bum back then. But it was the most expensive concert I ever bought a ticket for. And yeah, it was, it's David Bowie and friends, and there was some awesome stuff over there that I saw. I think I was excited because this is Bowie. I'm seeing Bowie again. He's playing stuff that I recognize. I'm in New York. I'm in Madison Square Garden, and oh my God, I almost levitated that night. But it was the highlight for me was when he did Space Odyssey, when he closed the show with Space Oddity. But it was the very first time I saw Lou Reed live. They did Dirty Boulevard and I'm Waiting for the Man. And I have to look back at the YouTube clip to see what else was there. Foo Fighters, Sonic Youth. But I really wish I could have seen a straight up David Bowie show. The last time he played Southern California was in 2002. I remember he played in Anaheim with the Polyphonic Spree. And I don't know why I didn't go to that show. I think it's probably a money issue, but I regret not going to that tour, the reality tour. So that's my very brief David Bowie concert history. How about yourself?
Well, I'm going to the legendary Bill Zanowitz concert list, which is on Excel, just to give people some sense of history. had a job in 1993 where I was working in the business end of Broadway theater, and the theater was dark. So I had nothing to do, like day in, day out for months. And one of the things I did was this was just in the beginnings of spreadsheets, and I started a spreadsheet of the concerts I went to because I was worried I was going to forget stuff. And it was good that I did it because I had this derelict roommate who threw out a lot of my concert stubs by accident.
Oh.
Yeah, I don't want to get into it. But the list survived electronically. And yes. I'm going to go through and tell you my Bowie experiences live. My first time was at Giant Stadium in August 1987. That would have been for Glass Spider. And the opening acts were Squeeze and Lisa and Cult Jam.
Oh, wonderful.
Yep. Then I saw him at the same venue in 1990, and that was for the Sound and Vision tour, which is behind his box set, and that was an amazing, that's still my favorite show, because
now, did you get Lenny Kravitz?
No, I got Joe Satriani.
Oh, wow, because we got Lenny Kravitz because he did that tour at the Dodger Stadium.
And that was my favorite show because it was him encapsulating his career, and at the time he said this was the last time I'm playing these songs live.
Yeah, I remember that.
And then I have to move over to Tin Machine, which I saw at the Academy on 11/27/1991, which was the day after Freddie Mercury died.
Oh my God.
And Not a Mention.
Wow.
Which was a little weird. And in the audience that night was Iman and was Soupy Sales.
Oh my gosh.
The Sales
Brothers? The Sales Brothers.
Okay. Next time I saw him, 95, with 9 Inch Nails on that outside tour. Then 1996 at Roseland, which was I think it was for Earthling. Was that around 96?
I think so, because I remember when he played a Halloween here around that time at the Palladium, so it was same size venue.
Yeah. And then the next time was the aforementioned birthday concert that you went to, and we have been finding stuff out where we've been at the same place at the same time and well before we knew each other, so that was interesting.
I wonder if we sat next to each other.
It's so funny. Then the next time was not a concert, but was a TV taping for Conan O'Brien, 1999, and he did, I forget what album he would have been pushing at that point. Maybe that was Earthling, I don't know. The 90s and early 2000s, I get a little confused. And he did some song off the new album, and then, like, after the show was over, he just went into Cracked Actor. And it was really good. It was really good. And that's the closest I ever was to him because we were in the second row of the audience. So that was the closest I ever physically was to him. And then there was a Roseland show in 2002. And for this particular show, he did 2 albums in their entirety. The first was the new album, which was Heathen. And then he did Low in its entirety.
Oh my goodness.
And which was a great show, but the second half of Low is a little rough to go through live.
It's kind of, yeah.
So,
and then who opened up for them on that tour?
Nobody. There was nobody.
Oh, okay. Wow.
He also had another Roseland show that he canceled the day of. And that one really got to me because on that tour, he was pulling stuff from well back, songs he never did live before, like the London Boys.
Oh
and I was like, oh my God, we're gonna get something, we're gonna get something. And he canceled that day. So that was a bummer. I forget what year that was. I saw him on the Area 2 Festival with Moby. And the other acts were Busta Rhymes, Blue Man Group, and Ash on that day. Then the next time was at Benefit for Tibet House. I think these are still going on where they're annual benefits at Carnegie Hall for monks who are in oppression and with the situation politically in Tibet. And the lineup there, apart from Bowie, was Lou Reed, Rufus Wainwright, Ray Davies, Philip Glass, Ziggy Marley, Angelique Kidjo, and Laurie Anderson.
Wow.
That was a pretty good lineup there.
That's pretty awesome.
But again, like people doing 1 or 2 songs. And for that one, we did have Bowie with Ray Davies singing "You Really Got Me."
Oh my gosh!
And
I wish they would have done I wish they would have done Where Have All the Good Times Gone from Pinups.
Yeah. And then the last time I saw him, and I did not know it would be the last time, was with the Polyphonic Spree, and that was at the Wachovia Center in Philly, and that was on March 29, 2004.
Oh,
So,
wow.
a bunch of times I saw the man live. Yeah.
Oh my goodness, yeah. So gosh. Even though my experiences wasn't like stellar, of course it was awesome just seeing him in the flesh, but yeah, I kind of just, oh gosh, there's so many times where it's like, oh, I should have gone. Who cared what my mom would have said? I should have gone anyway. I snuck out of the house for Judas Priest. I should have done it for Bowie too.
Yeah. Of any of the shows, I would say the one to have seen was the Sound and Vision tour.
That was the one where she says, you're not going, you're not leaving this house.
Yeah. And that one, I rarely get knocked out by musicians because I'm not a muso. I'm just not that way. I did with Adrian Belew playing guitar.
Adrian Belew, yeah. I watched the concert from Tokyo 1990. It's all on YouTube and even the also another Tokyo concert from 78, both with Adrian Belew, and he always knocks me out, whether it's with Zappa or King Crimson, and so. Yeah.
And you also have to think with Bowie, just the stellar sidemen. He performed with.
Oh,
and, a range of people from Luther Vandross to Trent Reznor, it's really something, yeah.
And I can't think of his name right now, but he's also he played with them on the 78 tour. I can't think of the name of that tour, but it was, the violin player also played violin for Hawkwind from 72 to present,
Yeah. So we were talking through the week about what we would talk about, and one of the things we had thought about was, favorite albums, favorite singles. And I think we both can identify our 5 favorite songs.
Yes.
Pretty easily. Do you want to take that first, or?
Sure, I'll start
Okay, what we'll actually do is when we get to our number 1 song, we'll actually insert it so people can hear it.
Okay.
There we go. All right. So, you go with your top 5 David Bowie tracks there, Tito.
My top 5 David Bowie track. Well, I'm going to start with, I think this is on the, the original version appears on Space Oddity, but my favorite version of this song, which is called Unwashed and Somewhat Slightly Dazed, appears on the BBC sessions. I first heard this song on a bootleg. I do have a lot of, first of all, if you know me, you know I collect a lot of bootlegs, but since in the internet age, they're kind of obsolete now, but there was a time I loved Bowie bootlegs, and so it appeared on that first, and I loved that version, more raw version, acoustic guitar, and Mick Ronson's guitar on that is just out of this world. So, and love that version. I think it's much better than the version on Space Oddity. Number 4 will have to be Big Brother from Diamond Dogs. And I say Big Brother and Chant of the Ever Circling Skeletal Family, the little brother, woo woo. And I love playing that over and over again, loud, and just pretending, flicking the light switch on and off like a strobe light at the disco. So I still love doing that. Number 3 will probably have to be Sound and Vision from Low. When I first heard that, my father first played that for me, for some reason just warmed my heart. It warmed my cold, cold heart at the time. So yeah. And number 2 will have to be the Superman from The Man Who Sold the World. Big, loud, heavy. And I love all versions of that. The version on Man Who Sold the World, live versions, like you can hear that on, from the 72 tour, really. And but my number 1 favorite Bowie song is Golden Years. I think that is it's perfect. I think it's just a perfect song. You can dance to it. You can go grocery shopping to it, and it's fun. I've heard that at least 3 or 4 times in my entire life at a supermarket, and I just stop what I'm doing and just start dancing. It fills my heart right by the produce section or the or the frozen food section. So
my mental picture of that is exquisite.
Oh, dude. There's a health foods. No, well, there's a Sprouts over here. A Sprouts, it's kind of like a Whole Foods, but it's kind of like their downtown cousin, you know. But I don't know who does their playlist, but man, they play the best music over there. So that was the last time I've heard Golden Years at a supermarket, was at that Sprouts in Fullerton, and people must have thought I was just crazy, just shaking my ass by the Brussels sprouts, man. It was, I love it.
Okay, well, whether it's a very familiar track or one you're unfamiliar with, you're going to hear it right now.
Don't let me hear you say life's taking you nowhere. Angel, come baby. Look at that sky, life's begun. Nights are warm and the days are young. Come baby. This might be the lost, that's all. One time begging you save a little soul. Last night they loved you, opening doors and pulling some strings. Angel, come love the baby. Then walk luck and you looked in time. Never looked back, walk tall, act fine. Come love the baby. I'll stick with you, baby, for 1,000 years. Nothing's gonna put you in these golden drive back down where you once belonged, in the back of a dream car 20 foot long. Don't cry, my sweet, don't break my heart. Doing all right, the kind of get smart. Wish upon day, I believe, oh Lord, I'll believe all the way. Run for the shadows, run for the shadows in these golden years. There's my baby, lost that's all. One time begging you save a little golden years. Don't let me hear you say life's taking you nowhere. Angel, come love the baby. Run for the shadows, run for the shadows, run for the shadows in these golden years. I'll stick with you, baby, for 1,000 years. Nothing's gonna touch you in these golden years.
Okay, now for my top 5. My spread was all over the place in relation to time.
Yeah. I mean, there's so many. I mean, I've barely scratched the surface.
Yeah.
And right now I'm thinking about it. I'm like, oh, I should have said that, but yeah,
Right.
but no, I have my list that I wrote down, but.
Right. For my number 5, I'm choosing Ziggy Stardust, the song Ziggy Stardust. I have to say, for a long time, I preferred the Bauhaus version. Just because there's a lot more intensity to it, and particularly the Peel session version of that is just, it's great. But as time went on, I grew to be less punk snotty and, eventually embraced Bowie's regular version more and more. But I think that's a song that there are a number of bands that could do that right now and have a hit with it. There's something very timeless about not just that song, but songs from around that time period like Rebel Rebel and John I'm Only Dancing. I mean, you think of the pre-Young Americans phase, and that run of singles is just phenomenal. Starman and amazing songs, and some songs that weren't singles but were prominent album tracks like Panic in Detroit. Moon Age Daydream. Just a really amazing body of work. It would be the kind of thing like if he had retired at that point, as was threatened after the Hammerstein shows in '73, that body of work would have lived on enough to propel him into some degree of prominence to this day.
Especially with those first few albums, because even though he had a lot of look, I mean, that goes without saying, those songs are, especially Ziggy Stardust and the Man Who Sold the World, and maybe half of Aladdin Sane, a lot of those songs are very bare bones, balls out rock and roll, and you could still do so much with them because of their, dare I say, simplicity with a lot of those things. Even though there's a lot going on, I mean, hell, if I can play those on guitar, can play those on guitar, but there's a lot you can do, with those songs still.
Yeah. My number 4 song is from a 1993 album, his Black Toy, White Noise, and this was the lead single, Jump They Say, which was a song about his half-brother who committed suicide. And I think, especially for somebody who at that point was not as relevant as he was previously, to have a song in the midst of the grunge era that had a lot of complexity to it, and was daring in a different way than other stuff that was going on. It was that whole album has a very schizophrenic feel to it. There's a cover of a Cream song, there's a cover of a Morrissey song, Al B. Sure is on there. It's a really psychotic album, and it's kind of uneven, but the moments on the album that work well, and for me the best example of that was Jump They Say. My number 3 song is a song that he did with the Pat Metheny Group for a movie, from The Falcon and the Snowman in 1985. This Is Not America.
Love that so much.
And I'm glad it has, over time, started appearing on greatest hits compilations, because for a long time it was just, the single was out, it was on the soundtrack, and that was it. It just wasn't part of Bowie's regular catalog. And I do think that it's two artists that work phenomenally well together in sound, and probably my favorite set of Bowie lyrics.
Wow.
Yeah, so
I remember wanting to see that movie so bad as a kid, but no, my parents they would tell me, it's not a concert movie. I don't care. It's not like Purple Rain. Trust me.
And then my number 2 song. Oh, you have something else to add there, brother?
Oh no, I was gonna say, there's a really cool version of This Is Not America on, actually the technically 3rd disc on the BBC sessions, that concert from the BBC theater. It's a great, I think it's the 2nd or 3rd song he does in that, and it's a great version of that song.
Right.
And I think it's because of that song made me really, look at that song again.
Okay, then my number 2 song goes pretty far back to his 1967 Durham album, and that is a song called Sell Me a Coat. I love his debut album. It's a very different sound from the glam-oriented stuff that comes subsequent to it. If there is a principal influence on him at this point musically, it's Anthony Newley. So a lot of these songs are from essentially English music hall tradition. Just rock and roll enough to matter. Especially when you get the expanded version of the first album, which had these singles that came out around the same time but weren't part of the album. And also he was part of a video project called Love You Till Tuesday. That's where the original version of Space Oddity comes from. But
is
other
also
amazing songs on that, like When I'm Five.
When I'm Five, I was just going to say that.
Let Me Sleep Beside You.
Oh, that's a great one too.
I love that album. And a song I mentioned earlier, The London Boys, which is this really stark song about mod life and more than a little hint of homosexual activity in that song. A really stark song in comparison to, even if there are twisted lyrics like the Little Bombardier, it's a really twisted story he's telling there to this circus-like background. But London Boys is a very stark song. I love the 67 period. Love it so much. Oh God, I love it. Can you tell I love it?
Whenever I revisit that album, I'd like to think, I think that period ended too soon, really. I think there was still some more stuff he could have done over there, but, he was kind of, I guess changing even back then.
I'm thinking another great song, Silly Boy Blue. I mean, these songs are so great. Oh God, I love this album. Then for my favorite Bowie song, I have to give it to Kooks, which is a song from Hunky Dory.
Yes.
And it's a song written about the birth of his son, who is now a film director, and directed Warcraft, the Warcraft movie that's coming out.
And I think he goes by Cameron, but he doesn't go by Zoe
Duncan Jones. He goes by Duncan Jones, which was actually his birth name. There was a lot of press that his son was named Zoe Bowie.
It just makes for better
Zoe
copy.
was actually a middle name, just like David was bisexual, it didn't stick. Neither did Zoe. But he goes by Duncan Jones. And, it's a song about the birth of his son, and it's my favorite, and you're gonna hear it right now.
Will you stay in a lover's story? If you stay, you won't be sorry, 'cause we believe in you. Soon you'll grow, so take a chance with a couple of kooks hung up on romancing. Will you stay in a lover's story? If you stay, you won't be sorry, 'cause we believe in you. Soon you'll grow, so take a chance with a couple of kooks hung up on romancing. We bought a lot of things to keep you warm and dry, and a funny old crib on which the paint won't dry. I bought you a pair of shoes, a trumpet you can blow, and a book of rules of what to say to people when they pick on you. 'Cause if you stay with us, you're gonna be pretty cookie too. Will you stay in a lover's story? If you stay, you won't be sorry, 'cause we believe in you. Soon you'll grow, so take a chance with a couple of kooks hung up on romancing. And if you ever have to go to school, remember how they messed up this old fool. Don't pick fights with the bullies or the cats, 'cause I'm not much cop at punching other people's dads. And if the homework brings you down, then we'll throw it on the fire and take the car downtown. Will you stay in a lover's story? If you stay, you won't be sorry, 'cause we believe in you. Soon you'll grow, so take a chance with a couple of kooks hung up on romancing. Will you stay in a lover's story? If you stay, you won't be sorry, 'cause we believe in you. Soon you'll grow, so take a chance with a couple of kooks hung up on romancing.
So you got to hear our respective favorite Bowie songs, and we're just scratching the surface. Oh, brother.
Exactly. I'm still thinking of like some great B-sides and great standalone singles like Holy Holy, and right now I'm even thinking about the lyrics to Kooks, how just endearing they are about, throwing your homework into the fire and if you get in trouble, like, you're kind of on your own because I'm not good at punching out other boys' dads. Right.
How about your favorite Bowie cover version? Not a song that Bowie covered, but a cover version of a song by Bowie. What would you say your favorite
of a song by Bowie? It kind of caught me up. I can't say this is my favorite, but there used to be a band called Big Drill Car. And they did a real dynamite version of Black Country Rock, even though I was really not into them or that kind of scene or anything on Cruise Records. Sorry, Ben. Sorry, Ben.
sorry for all the bands, all the punk bands that sing about homework and beer. Yeah.
But I've seen them live numerous times, but then it was like, oh, all right, awesome, they're going to do Black Country Rock again. So that's all I can think of. And
that's when I
you know what else?
Out,
I love Tina Turner's version of Cat People. I think it's so dynamite. I think it was almost tailored for her.
I threw this out and I'm thinking, oh, it's that. No, it's not that. Oh, it's that. No, it's not that. There's a lot of great cover versions out there. I mentioned it earlier. Bauhaus's version of Ziggy Stardust, particularly
yes.
the Peel session version. Can I put that across more? The Peel session version.
Actually, that was my introduction to Bauhaus right there. So thank you, David Bowie.
Yeah. One that I really love was a song that you mentioned, was Golden Years. And in the mid-80s, British soul in the mid-80s had it was bizarro soul. It was, it wasn't quite Shalimar. It was a little bit, it was taking the American tropes, but it was just a little different. And you had acts like Princess and Loose Ends. And Loose Ends had a almost hit here with a song called Hanging on a String. And the follow-up single to that was their cover of Golden Years. And hearing Golden Years through Soul Filter like that was pretty interesting. And that's one I would recommend people seek out. And there's tons of them. We also have to mention the
Barbra Streisand.
Stunning Barbra Streisand version of Life on Mars. Not stunning musically, but stunning that it ever happened.
Yes. There's an awesome version of Life on Mars by Annie Fried-Lingston from ABBA. It was an album that she made, produced by Benny and Bjorn. I think it was in the middle of the ABBA career, and it was on that I can't pronounce it. It's in Swedish, so I'm not going to attempt to pronounce the name of it. I think I'm not going to start, but it has the first version of Fernando, but she does an amazing version of Life on Mars, and it's sung in Swedish. Everything is sung in Swedish. Half of that album is covered. She does a really cool version of God Only Knows and Send in the Clowns, but I think her version of Life on Mars is dynamite. And just picture just an ABBA production in that song, and with that beautiful ABBA voice, I think it really works. And it's not I'm to the point where it's not like this kind of freak show. It's kind of like Barbra Streisand. Look at Barbra Streisand doing a Bowie song. Haha, kind of funny. But it's, this, I think it's a legit, and it's beautiful. Beautiful.
Yeah. I'm also thinking naturally of Nirvana's The Man Who Sold the World.
Oh, yes. I was talking to someone and I just says, I wonder and I hope, and it's probably happened, that probably introduced David Bowie to a lot of another generation, I hope, or it should have. But yeah. Dynamite.
Well, Bowie, we missed you already. We
oh
missed
my
you, Mr.
God.
Jones. We missed you already.
I'm staring at my what kind of turned into my Bowie shrine, because I've been pulling out. Well, first of all, I moved about a year and a half ago, so my records are not in any sort of order. So I've just been digging through all this albums. Like, where's that bootleg? Where's this? Where's that? So there's just records all over the floor, and all these Bowie's albums and singles propped up on my shelves, on my IKEA shelves.
And you also had a situation with Bowie in the early 90s where you had semi-legal bootlegs. Do you remember this, like the Santa Monica show?
The Santa Monica one. Oh my gosh, dude.
Yeah.
When I mentioned this on Facebook, I think when that was first semi-legitimately issued, where by I mean semi-legit is that you could buy it like at Tower Records. I bought it at a record store called Levels in Whittier. But when I got that, I would just play that non-stop, and I love that show, warts and all. And I said on Facebook, I know that concert like the back of my hand. Even Mick, when Mick Ronson first sings his 5 years out of tune. I just still think that's great.
And we do hope you've enjoyed listening to
dude,
us
we can
go
talk
on about Bowie here, but
we can talk until 4 a.m. like I did on Sunday night.
But it's a catalog that is worth exploring if you are unfamiliar with it. It's a catalog that is worth re-exploring if you are very familiar with it.
Exactly.
And it's a catalog that unfortunately has coda at this point.
Yes.
And it's now I did not get emotional at all early in the week. Now I'm getting emotional a little bit because we were talking about celebrity deaths that had effects on us.
Yeah.
And
I mean, it wasn't, obviously it was sad, but it wasn't traumatic like, John Lennon or Kurt Cobain, but it's still.
And again, he had been in ill health that you knew of through the heart attack and the massive withdrawal from public life, pretty much. Which seemed to work for him too because he was such an enigmatic figure that, as we were talking, Cobain's death had effects on both of us. For me, it was just this insane feeling of the day they found his body. My straight concert husband and I went to see Crowded House, and it was just like impossible to have a good time, and you're trying. And when I got home was when I started watching the TV coverage, and the thing that shook me was seeing the chyron on the screen saying 1967 to 1994, which would have been my age. I'm 6 months younger. And at that point, I could not conceive of my life being over, especially by my own hand. And the other one that had an effect on me was Peter Christopherson Sleazy from Throbbing Gristle and Coil. And that was because I've always been fascinated with Throbbing Gristle. For me, they were the first band that really challenged me in relation to what the notion of music was.
Yes, it's very,
to put it in a very succinct form. When I went to see the reunion shows, I saw both reunion shows in Brooklyn and the reunion show in New York when they played. And at the first show, there was a signing where they were at a table and they were signing, and it was pure chaos. And somehow I ended up on the side of the table right by Sleazy, and I was like kind of his lieutenant for about 5 minutes, grabbing stuff for people to sign and then handing it off. Just that he was also a gay man, and I always felt like I would have a real conversation with him one day. It was just something about that where, if you want somebody who just has an amazing secret history as a video director, working with axes ranging the spectrum from Ministry to Hanson, he's a fascinating figure too for me. And those were the two that really affected me.
Yeah, that's one of those acts where it's like, I don't even know where to start. I just remember working at the record store. It's like, where do I start with this? I can't, this is, ouch, my brain hurts.
Yeah. And Bowie was a champion of theirs early on too. Yeah, brother. Well, I hope we don't have too many of these shows in the near future.
No. Because, I mean, I was getting over Lemmy, and then now this. I mean, dude.
And unfortunately, we're getting at this point where acts that we care about are going to be shuffling off the mortal coil just because of age, and damage and past damage. Let's face it, we might have had Bowie longer if he didn't smoke like a chimney his whole life and didn't do wheelbarrows of cocaine in the late 70s. So I'm thinking of so many acts that I enjoy and matter to me, that so many of them are of an advanced age that it's the next few years are going to be scary no matter how you look at it.
Exactly. It was just like, I'm glad I've seen Leonard Cohen as I did and had my moment with him at that Ralph's supermarket on my lunch break at work.
Well, do you want to wrap this one up then, sir?
Let's wrap this one up, sir. Oh gosh.
In a nice glittery bow.
Yes. And for the past few nights, the stars have been looking very different, and there is a starman waiting up there, and, yes. But I'm not gonna say goodbye to David Bowie, but just see you later, and whenever I spin one of his records or watch Labyrinth, he's alive for that moment. So just let's think about that. And, he continues to inspire me still. Whenever I pick up a guitar, the first thing I warm up to is the opening riffs to With the Circle. So Mick Ronson is alive too as well.
And they're playing together right now, I bet.
Yes, arguing or something.
Yeah. Well, thank you, David Jones.
Yes, thank you all. And thank you all for listening. Until next time.